When a person comes to a monastery, a Benedictine monastery, and wants to join, St. Benedict says in his rule that we have to sit them down 3 times in the year that they're with us preparing and read the whole rule to them 3 times so that they know what they're getting into. Fair enough. And to know what they're agreeing to do for the rest of their lives. I wonder, do we do that in RCIA classes? Do we sit down before we get into the details of Catholicism and talk to them like Jesus speaks to us today in the gospel, demanding of us total dedication to Him? Now, I know that hating your father and mother is mid-Eastern hyperbole. I mean, that's exaggeration. That's the way mid-Easterners talk. So we're not taking Jesus literally because He is the preacher of love. But He does demand allegiance to Himself. Now, for us cradle Catholics, we became Christians and then we learned what it was all about. Today's scriptures reiterate for us at this point in our year of worship the challenge of being a disciple of Jesus. And the challenge presents us with several questions that we have to answer ourselves and perhaps even apply to the whole Christian community, starting with the family and the parish. Is my way of living as a Christian distinguishable from people who are not Christian and their way of living? How different is it being a Christian from being an American in the 21st century? In our culture, in our climate, in our financial situation, political situation? How different are we? Around the world, more Christians are losing their lives today than they did during the Roman persecutions. What loss have I sustained as a Christian? Obviously not my life. Do I need to hit the reboot button as a disciple of Jesus? It's discouraging questions, huh? This is not fluffy Christianity. This is the hard following of Christ that He talks about in the gospel. But you know, we have to remember that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with 1 step. And that's all that the Lord asks of us, to take the 1 step necessary today to become more His disciple than we were yesterday. And for each of us, that step may be different, probably will be. So the question that the scriptures present to us on this Sunday of the year is, what steps do I need to take to walk more firmly in the footsteps of Jesus? Some of the questions that I might ask myself are the following. Can I live less as a consumer and live a more simple life in my tastes, in my purchases, in everything? Or is the consumer society dominating the whole way in which I approach the good things that God has given me? Do I need in my life to find more room for another, whoever that other might be? Might be somebody in the family that I've shut out. What is my relationship with the less fortunate? Not just the financially less fortunate, but perhaps someone who's less fortunate in their relationship with Jesus. They don't even know Him, and I know Him. Am I willing to share? Does my prayer need to become more a priority in my daily schedule? Or is it just some routine thing that I do every day, like brushing my teeth? Now, the answer to these questions will demand, if we answer them truthfully, changes in the way we live. But that's the point of being a Christian, to live differently than what my human nature normally leads me to live a life like Jesus, like Christ. That's what following of Christ means. So some of the answers that I give to those questions might mean, let's say, less TV and more conversation. Less TV and more listening to other people, not just to people on a screen. It might mean less money for recreation and more for the poor. It might mean, like Paul in that second reading, you picked that up, I hope. Paul was taking one tiny step, which it took the church over 1,000 years to take the final step in the journey. He was sending a slave back to his master. But Paul had made him a Christian. And he said, now receive him back not as a slave that you own, but as a brother that you have. But it took the whole church, it took us in this country till 1865 to disenslave people, and we were a Christian nation. So journeys begin with little steps, one after another. So, like Paul, do I need to see certain other people in my life as brothers and sisters? The psalm today says to us, life is short. Let's get on with the journey. Back in the 40s, when communism was really a problem, there were people who were card-carrying members of the Communist Party. And there were others that sort of were on the periphery. They were called fellow travelers. And on my journey with Christ, am I a card-carrying member or am I just a fellow traveler?